There is a book that I had the confirmation students read last year. It was called Touching Spirit Bare by an author, Michelson. Two boys in their early teens, probably 13, 14 years old. One was a bully. Cole was his name. He bullied Peter to no end, and at one point he took it too far and hit his head against a concrete sidewalk and gave Peter permanent damage to his brain. Now, when Cole was sent up, not arrested, but taken into custody, he was given two choices. Either spend a year in juvenile detention or longer, or spend a year alone in isolation on an Alaskan island. Cole chose to take the year in the Alaskan island in isolation. But before that, he met with the elders of this Native American tribe. And together they formed a circle of people, including Peter, his parents, Cole and his parents, and other members of the community and other members of the tribe, the Native American tribe. It was their goal that Cole would learn what he had done and reconcile within himself and also with Peter. Cole found it difficult because he was a very hurt and troubled child. His parents were mean to him, and they were on the edge of divorce. And he was an angry boy, apparently, about what he had done to Peter. So as he's going by canoe with his two Indian guides to this island, he's thinking to himself, 1 year and then I'll be free. I'll be able to do what I want when I want. This will be a breeze for me. His Native American advisors, elders, helped him to build his own little hut out of wood from the island, and to prepare fire for himself, and to make living quarters for himself that he could live somewhat out of the elements. After all, it was Alaska. Winters could be pretty harsh. When the elders left, Cole, being very, very angry, burned the cottage and then just decided he was going to swim back. As he got into the cold water, he found he could swim only a little ways before the cold got to his bones and he had to turn back. He tried to live off the land, but he had learned nothing of what the Indian elders had shown him. After about 2 weeks, the elders came back to check on him. And they saw this burned-out hut, reduced to just burned ashes and a few burned, charred logs. He found a young boy shivering underneath a tree, and they tried to help him as much as they could. But he had been given all that he needed, and he decided to destroy that. So there was nothing they could do. It was his choice. And they left. They gave him some of the food supplies that he needed, and they left for their journey back home again. Upon this time, he had thought he had seen a bear, a white bear, a great white bear. And he had never heard of that before. But one of the elders said, "Yeah, I've seen that too as a boy. A great white bear, a spirit animal. Listen for it. Listen to him, but don't go near him." So Cole, being the rebel as he was, soon set a trap for the bear. What he thought would be a trap, set out food, and the bear came, and Cole thought he was prepared, but the bear attacked him and mauled him near to death. And as he was lying there, suffering and struggling for a drink of water or some kind of food, and it goes into detail. I don't know if Mitch probably remembers this or not, but he struggled for quite a while. When the elders came back, they took him back to a hospital and patched him up. He had some broken ribs and some deep cuts in his chest and arms, and he was in pretty bad shape. Well, as time went on, he met with the council again, and he was still a little belligerent, but he was coming around. The Indian elders would go with him to a mountain and carry a big stone up the mountain. That was his burden. Metaphorically speaking, it was his burden on his own conscience. He had to carry it. He had to carry it through icy waters from one place to another, up a mountain and roll it down the hill, symbolizing that he could let go of the anger, he could let go of the bitterness, he could let go of a lot of things that he was carrying with him that he need not carry. After a while, almost a year, they brought Peter to the island. Cole and Peter lived together in a very uncomfortable situation. Peter was very upset, very angry with Cole for what he had done. And Cole, by the time this had come around, he was beginning to feel the remorse and feel the love for his own friend, to become his friend. It's a story about reconciliation when there seemed to be none. The hope that things would be better, that even two who are so different from each other and that happened so bad that the injury had been so, and the insult had been so great that it seemed like nothing could reconcile. But there was a love that was growing slowly but surely between the two boys. They began to talk. And the story ends there. But it's a story of, rather than throwing him into the slammer for years, to have a taste of reconciliation, even though the one who hurt you, the one who was against you, can come around for the betterment of the two boys. Jesus shares a meal with all his disciples, which is a wonderful act and a very meaningful act in itself. He shared the meal with all his disciples. And to surprise them, he took off his robe and washed their feet, which is unheard of by a master to his students. A slave, only a slave does that. And after the meal, not before the meal. So something was up with this. And Jesus knew in his heart that Judas was there among them. And yet, he gave him the meal, he shared a meal. He washed his feet as he did the others. There were no strings attached because the disciples had really done nothing for Jesus. They wasn't doing it, Jesus wasn't saying, I love you because you do this for me or that for me or make me feel this way or that way. No, they were a lot that didn't really give him much back. So this was a purely selfless act. Jesus did not reject him, but he knew what was going to happen next. Jesus gave him the freedom to do what he would do. He didn't tell the other disciples, now he's going to betray me. And you wonder if the other disciples would restrain him and say, no, you don't. We're going to hold you until this is all blown over. They were a little bit annoyed by this. They didn't know what was going to happen. Jesus let him go to do what he needed to do. Jesus gives us freedom to stray, as Judas strayed. Jesus was there even if Judas strayed, even if we stray from where we are. Jesus still washes our feet. Jesus still feeds us the supper, still gives of himself, body and soul, to us. We have the capacity to love greatly, and at the same time to also betray as Judas did. The beautiful thing about this is it didn't matter to Jesus. He still loved them all to the end. Loves us all to the end, whether we deserve it or not. And clearly Judas, if anybody, did not deserve it. The radical nature of Jesus, in many levels throughout his ministry, this one probably topped them all. To forgive someone who will betray him. God gives us the freedom to do what we will. If not, then God doesn't love us. Then does God? We're not puppets. And we show that all the time. And yet, he gives us a glimmer of hope that no matter what, he's there for us. That through Jesus, God is glorified. God shows God's self through Jesus. The unselfish love that we all crave, that we all need from a God who cares. Funny thing is, too, Judas didn't refuse Jesus washing his feet. He was still right there. He didn't reject the relationship with Jesus. And yet, things change. And we know from the Easter that through death, there is a resurrection. Through the seemingly betrayal of Jesus by one of his closest friends, there is healing and new life for all. So then what are we to do? What are we to do with the freedom we have? The mandate to love to the end? That's a tall order. That's a very tall order for us who are fallible people. And yet, that is the kind of love that God gives us and gave us through the Christ and continues to give us to heal our hearts, to continue to be present with us. I was with Ruth Davidson this morning, Amy Koppa's mother, and we don't expect maybe through the night, maybe not. And talking with Amy about, if you weren't a spiritual person at the end of a loved one's life, you will be, because you see signs of that spiritual, that God gift in many ways. So God is present. God is present, and God cares. Amen.